Well, now it's time for ChaHealth. In today's episode, Ella speaks to Purvi about obesity.
Hello CHATIME viewers, welcome to ChaHealth. I'm your host Ella Kumar, and today we have a charming young lady, Purvi from ProCare. She will be covering obesity. We will look at ways on how you can measure yourself around your waist, and also introducing a wonderful book that's out to help Indian people decide on what to eat and when to eat. So Purvi, what is obesity?
Obesity or overweight, in simple language, I would just say it's the presence of excess body fat, and you measure it using BMI. So the first question will be like, how do I know I'm obese or overweight? So the simplest way you measure is your BMI, that's body mass index. I'll explain the formula that you divide your weight by your height in meters square. So for example, if a person is 53 kgs and the height is 163 centimeters, so 50 kgs divided by 1.63, that's 1.63 meters, and what you get the result, you again divide it by 1.63, and the figure that you get is your BMI. If your BMI is between 25 to 29.9, that means a person is overweight, and if the BMI is above 30, that means the person is obese. Mind you, if someone's muscular, their BMI will be automatically higher because muscle weighs more than fat. So the muscular person may feel that my BMI is higher, I'm on the obese or the overweight side, but that's not the case. The other simple way to measure obesity is by the abdominal circumference, that's waist circumference. I'm stressing on waist circumference because according to clinical studies in South Asians and other European populations as well, abdominal circumference has been very strongly related to disease like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, blood pressure, etc. And what happens is, by abdominal circumference, I mean the fat around your waist. So the more amount of fat you put around your waist, the more amount of blood vessels your body produces. And you've got to understand that the more amount of blood vessels in your body, your heart has to pump harder so that blood reaches every cells of the body. So that's the whole concept. So that puts a load on your heart and your blood pressure increases, and that's where the cycle begins. Your blood pressure increases, it increases your cardiovascular risk disease.
And what about the causes? What are the causes of obesity?
The simple cause is energy imbalance. That by energy imbalance, I mean when your energy input, that's what you eat, is more than your energy output by what you spend, your physical activity. But that's not all, that there's more, because what happens is it all starts in the mother's womb. When the mother's not well nourished in pregnancy, that's where the trouble begins. And malnutrition doesn't only mean less nutrient or less food to eat. Also, when there is more food to eat and when it's abused, when the energy consumption is more and there's obesity, that also can mean malnutrition. So the mother's got to be very careful.
So Purvi, do you think the Indian community consume foods that are high in fat?
Yeah, I do, because what happens is our cooking methods are different than the normal methods here followed by the European population. By that I mean that we use a lot of ghee, but we've got to understand that ghee is high in saturated fat, and saturated fat is the culprit which increases the blood cholesterol and increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, blood pressure, and these metabolic diseases. So that's one aspect. And the second is we reuse a lot of fat when we are stir frying veggies. By stir fry, I mean just use a non-stick pan and just lightly stir fry your veggies. It doesn't have to be dipped, and you don't have to roll the boat in oil. So you've got to just lightly stir fry it in a non-stick pan.
So Purvi, a person that does have obesity, what can they do to help themselves?
First and foremost, you need to get physically active, which needs to be done gradually. I understand you cannot do it overnight, you cannot do a 30-minute activity. So you need to do it gradually. I'm sure you will cover a few physical activity sessions. And with your diet, you need to follow the dietary guidelines which are released by the Ministry of Health. There's a very good book which has been recently released, that's Healthy Eating for South Asians, and this will be readily available at your GP practice. So just ask for these books, and it's a very good book which has guidelines on all the food groups like whole grain cereals, milk and milk product, meat products and meat alternatives, etc.
So what about the vegetables that are cooked in oil and we are meant to have 5+ a day? Can you count them?
Yes, but as I said earlier, you've got to cook it in a very healthy way. You've just got to lightly stir fry it. And if you find it too dry, rather than using ghee or a lot of oil, use tomato-based gravies. You can use tamarind, you can use vegetable stock to give it a bit of moisture or increase the bulk. And we've got to be mindful that do not increase the bulk of vegetables with potato or kumara, because sometimes that does happen, that we find that, oh my god, this vegetable is a little less than what I anticipated, I might as well add some potatoes. There's no harm in having potatoes or kumara, but mind you, they're high in carbohydrates. So if there's someone who's diabetic in your family, you've got to be careful for that person. You're increasing the sugar load.
Thank you, Purvi. The obesity topic will definitely help us, and we do hope to see you at another session.
Thank you, Ella. It was my pleasure being here.
But before you go, if you can come along and show us how to do the correct waist measurements with a tape measure. Thank you, Purvi.
The best way to measure the waist circumference is you feel your last rib and the hip bone. You take a midpoint and mark it somewhere here, and just take the tape measures. See to it that you cover the point that you've marked, and in the middle you can measure your waist. So it's in between the last rib and the hip bone, the midpoint between the rib and the hip bone. You take the measure, take it around you, and see to it that you cover the mark, and that's your waist circumference.